I played fetch with both of my dogs. Like with one, with serious behavioral problems for 4 months, every day, something was apparently what was wrong, and the improvement in the behavior was like massive. With my other dog, pretty much we did that daily as our daily routine, and the dog is just like the best dog I ever had. Like chilled, relaxed, confident, and cope with the world, not obsessive, but also, guess what? Has 100% reliable recall from animal, from whatever, without, okay, I'm going to say it, without e-collars and shit like that.
Yeah. It's interesting because kill bite, like that's the end of the sequence. The end of the sequence is dissection, is eating. So you're telling me if I play ball with the dog, what have I got to do? Let him eat the ball?
Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to do here? Like,
that's epic. Yeah.
This morning, Simon Gabwa, who's a legit scientist, canine scientist over in Canada, had this big rant on Facebook about how pissed off he was that people keep like quoting his work and then just completely misrepresenting it.
Oh man!
And I didn't see what the source of the argument was, like why he got annoyed about this, but I got the impression that someone had posted like a study that he'd done it to defend something, and then he had said, "Hey, no, that's not what I meant." And then that person argued with him about what his own study said. It's like, I think he knows. Like, he wrote the study.
I think he knows.
Stress versus de-stress. Like, there is good stress and bad stress, and the effort to eliminate all stress is like really short-sighted, and I don't think it's scientific. I think it's really
it doesn't make any sense. Like, even not going into the science, I'm not a scientist, right? But it does not. Pardon?
You have an animal science degree, don't you?
Yes, I do, but I'm not a scientist, right? It is exaggeration to call myself like this way just because I got master's degree in animal science, right?
I just want to point that out because I think a lot of people think that we're a couple of cavemen or something.
And they are not wrong. You are not wrong. We are talking about today.
Today we're talking about fetch, whether you should play it, whether it's the source of all evil in this world.
I never thought I will live to the day that, we will have to defend playing fetch with the dog, or like playing with the dog, or like doing activities with the dog. It's just madness. But there is some, something to it, right?
So, of course. Yeah, I mean, this attitude has actually been around for quite a while. Like, I've definitely seen people kind of make this argument for years. And it started like really with people that hated ball launchers, which I can understand. It's annoying when you're out in the park and, people have these ball launchers and they just chuck them right at you. And it's a pain in the ass. But then also this is an extension of the kind of mindset which has existed over the last 5-10 years, where people have become very obsessed with cortisol, which we've spoken about previously.
Yeah.
And this is kind of an extension of that, because people, fetch increases cortisol levels, therefore fetch must be evil, therefore we have to avoid fetch at all costs.
Yeah. And, like people are going into those extremes, because the story was like, I heard from my friend, from Lila, that there is some drama or going like about the fetch, right? And, like from what I heard from people, it was just, you shouldn't be playing fetch with the dog at all. This is what I've heard, right? And I thought like, okay, I'm gonna check it out, right? And actually it wasn't like exactly that. So the title was like, you shouldn't be playing fetch every day with your working dog, which kind of narrows down a little bit the subject, right? Because, like my first thought was like, how that can be, like evil if some of the dogs, they will chase 5 times and they don't want to run 6 times, right? And then, they don't give a shit basically about the fetch. So like this extreme statement, and something what I really hate is like talking in absolutes. Like you shouldn't play fetch with the dog. Like, but with all the dogs, with your dog, with, dog specific breed, and we have to be, a little bit more precise about that. And then if we will, if we will narrow down to the title, like you shouldn't play fetch every day with your working dog, it still doesn't make much sense, but makes more sense than the fetch is evil, right? And you shouldn't be doing at all with none of the dogs, right?
I guess what we should probably do is, like, as they say, strongman the argument. So let's kind of play devil's advocate here. Let's make the argument for why, like, what are they getting at,
Yeah.
Which is really, I think there are some dogs that sometimes you see this every now and then in pet dogs where maybe someone's gone out with their dog and the only thing they do with their dog is just get the ball launcher and they chuck the ball for the entire walk. And what ends up happening is the dog has like almost like a dependency on the ball, whereas like they can't even like process the world because they're so obsessed with the ball. And if you try to take them out without the ball, it's like anxiety producing, it's like their way of coping with life. And I think that's what a lot of these people are getting at. And then also, regardless of, like, we do take the piss out of the cortisol stuff, and I think rightly so, but there is also some, like, of course, like all of these things, there is some merit to it. It's like, like you don't want, if you're like, for example, you've spoken before about when you're doing the residential training, you're trying to bring the dog, like you're trying to calm the dog down. Like if you're trying to calm the dog down, you're not going to go out and play like retrieve for like an hour every day as the only form of exercise.
But like, to be fair, if I'm training reactive dog, I just want to remove the dog from the trigger, and that's really it. The play is still happening. It's not like the dog is like absolutely doing nothing, because the exercise is one of the ways, to recover from stress, right? It's not only sleeping or resting. And all I want to do is take the dog away from the trigger that is producing stress or fear, etc., etc. It's not like we're not going to get excited at all, like for some period of time, right? I call it emotional preparation, which is quite important. My dog is just vomiting right now. Yeah, we're going to leave that.
Take a break there.
No, I'm not going to even edit that out.
Okay, no worries. Okay.
But that, I'm not going to lie, that distracted me like a bit, my rescue Malinois.
Oh, no, I know what you mean. Like, well, firstly, that's dog podcast. Like almost every podcast I listen to, dogs are interrupting them. It's fine. But like, you have, like, scientifically, there are terms for this. Like people talk about eustress versus de-stress. Like there is good stress and bad stress. And the effort to eliminate all stress is like really short-sighted. And I don't think it's scientific.
No,
I think it's really like
it doesn't
stupid.
make any sense. Like, even not going into the science, I'm not the scientist, right? But it does not. Pardon?
You have an animal science degree, don't you?
Yes, I do, but I'm not a scientist, right? It is exaggeration to call myself like this way just because I got master's degree in animal science, right?
I just want to point that out because I think a lot of people think that we're a couple of cavemen or something.
And they are not wrong. You are not wrong. But, like it's, coming from the practical side of it, right? Or even, okay, scientific. Like acute stress is fine. Chronic stress is something what we have problem with, right? Because like acute stress is just fight fire with fire, right? You want to get resilience, you have to expose yourself to some stress, right? Same like with, I don't know, building muscles. You have to put them under stress in order to build them. So, and like living stress-free life, it's not possible. We are delusional that is like that even is an option. So that doesn't make any sense from any point of view. Chronic stress, if the dog is, for example, exposed to the trigger that causes a lot of fear, like every day for a very, very long time or multiple times during a day, that may cause some problems, right? But yeah.
I find it
But
sad.
playing fetch is not, it's not that, right?
I find it sad sometimes. I work with people that have maybe been to other behaviorists, and those behaviorists have told them to stop doing things like fetch with their dog. And like maybe the dog, usually if I'm seeing them, like the dog's got some kind of problem. And like for some of these dogs, like fetch is like the only good thing in their life.
Oh yeah. And to be fair, I'm super fucking surprised that there are still behaviorists or trainers or whoever you are, people that they will tell or advise, don't play with high drive dogs. And very recently, one of our listeners, I had a lesson with the girl with German Shepherd, high drive, like German Shepherd, and she was advised by 4 other guys or a couple other guys. I don't want to, exaggerate, but like just not to play with the dog because the dog is getting aroused and excited, and you know, and I'm like, what? And within one session, through organized play event, we could finally get like some control or connection with the dog, right? And the dog was finally functioning very well, right? And I don't want to speak for someone, but she seems she seemed very, very happy with how the lesson went. But what we focused on was really creating a play event.
It's the difference between just avoiding the problem versus actually like teaching the dog, giving the dog clarity about like what to do in that situation, and also the skills to be able to think in arousal. Obviously, we spoke about that previously.
Yeah, exactly.
It's for some people, if they haven't taken the time to build the skill set to be able to teach dogs that stuff with the play, it's almost a little bit of a cop out just to try to like avoid it. Like, oh, don't play with the dog because the dog
makes him excited, because arousal gets you in trouble, right? And then recently I was like recording a thing with Nando, and we had like this little chat about like the working dog or sport dog trainers. They lean into teach the dog to think in arousal, etc., etc. Like pet dog trainers, they lean into like, let's bring that arousal down, let's calm down the dog. And from my experience, where I've been involved in the sport for like a number of years, but also like I did a residential training with the pet dogs for a number of years, right? I think there is like both things are really required, but there is order to it, and there's practicality of everything. So first thing what I want to do is teach the dog to think in arousal, so actually I can live life, because calming down the dog or bringing that calmness and changing the feelings will take a lot of time, right? So I need thinking in arousal and my dog to kind of cope with things and process things. And then I have like, once I can live life with the dog and without them having meltdown, then I can work on calmness wherever I need the calmness, right?
You spoke about with this person, you were teaching them how to play with their dog essentially, and teaching their dog how to deal with that. But like and that's one of my kind of counter arguments to this school of thought as well. And I think sometimes we lose sight of like what dog training is about, because for me, when I'm working with a dog owner and their dog, I always feel like one of the biggest return on investments you can get in terms of time spent with someone is teaching the dog how to play, whether that's fetch, tug, or whatever. Because if you give the person the skills to play that game with the dog, then like that is something that's going to stick with them forever. And oftentimes, especially with fetch, you can teach a dog to play fetch. Like a lot of dogs, you can teach to play fetch so quickly, really, really quickly. And then, and yeah, just in terms of like time invested versus like result, like giving them something they can actually do with the dog for the rest of the dog's life. It's massive.
Yeah. And, like giving people a skill, and actually, I think still play, even though we talk more about that, it's still underappreciated activity, right? Because it doesn't seem like very serious training, where through the play, you can teach the dog so many things, right? You can teach impulse control. You can teach things in arousal. Like all those things will be very practical in everyday life. And if your dog, especially if you have a high drive dog, you can do it in your garden, you can do it in your house, and you can drill, you can put the repetitions in without going out to the world where, all the distractions are unpredictable and you may not be ready and so on and so on, right? So it is like, working in the gym to build the strength to later on use it somewhere, right? This is the play, right? And I think it still like needs more attention, but even more, I think we should be playing better, right? So because there is a very fine line between getting all the benefits from play, for example, building confidence, building impulse control, and so on, thinking in arousal, and so on, and just make it like a very blunt activity that is just happening, right? So, yeah, I said it before, and I don't know, like I'm gonna say that again. Like with the play, it's like with sex. Like everybody wants to do it, nobody wants to learn how to do it, right? And everybody think automatically they are good at this. And if anything goes wrong, we blame the other side. And with the play, this is the case, right? If the dog is not playing, usually the owners, oh, my dog doesn't like toys, my dog doesn't like play. Where if we will focus on like how we initiate the game, how we let the dog win, and how we take the object away, you can get like such a great benefits from this activity. But going back to our subject, and really wanna point out that talking in absolutes, it's very toxic. Like fetch is bad because for some dogs, as you mentioned before, and I've seen those dogs that fetch was like the only thing what they did, and the dog without that ball had meltdown, couldn't cope with the world, right? But like anything that is pushed to such extreme may have like or will have a very negative effect.
I think it's interesting where people choose to focus as well, because like statistically, if I think about clients that I've seen over the years, the dogs that are like that, I would say are quite rare. I don't see like huge amounts of those dogs, but almost 100% of the dogs that I see, the person isn't playing with the dog correctly.
Yeah, because like even if you look what information I got versus what information was in that article, it was a little bit different. I got the information you shouldn't be playing fetch with the dog, but there is some nuance to it. Like even just to be back them up, they said like every day with working dogs, so they narrowed down. Maybe you with your fluffy dog, whatever, like pet dog, you can play fetch every day, and that's not gonna have like any bad effect. However, I can imagine with some dogs, if this is the only thing what they do, and you do that repetitive behavior, that can have like negative consequences, right? And I've seen those dogs, usually border collies, from my one-man experience, right? That they, you take the ball away and the dog wouldn't cope with the world at all. But as long as they could chase, like everything was fine. But that was the only activity that they had, because the owners were like, oh, if I'm taking the ball away, my dog is having meltdown, like not coping. So, they were reinforced.
I just think it's interesting how when you go online, you see very few people talking about getting dog owners playing with their dogs. Like that isn't really something that you see a lot of.
All right.
And yet we have conversations like this. Like I just don't, it's just strange to me that this is what we focus on rather than the much wider issue of like most people aren't even playing with their dogs, And if they are, they're doing like a terrible job of it.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting, like where people choose to focus their attention.
Yeah, so I think it's just I know like dog trainers, they will do something for attention, and they will say something very provocative just to get the clicks, and I get it. I really don't care or mind that, right? It is what it is. However, with like some of the statements, we can cause a lot of damage, right? Because like how many people like this post or share this post, and then how many people right now they will say like, oh, I shouldn't be playing fetch. And
Exactly.
therefore, maybe I shouldn't be playing, because they never got to the article that was like bringing it like play tag instead of fetch, which I disagree as well. But they never read the source. They will just get info. Oh, like everybody are right now like against the playing fetch because it can cause some compulsive tendencies,
Yeah,
etc. Right?
more dog trainers I think should be actually teaching dogs to play fetch. When
Yeah.
I do puppy classes, it's always difficult because I feel like people come to puppy class and they don't, like you say, hey, I'm going to show you how to play with your dog, and they're like, what? Like, what are you on about? Like,
All right.
I know
Okay.
how. Wait, play with your dog. Like, what is there to that? It was nice actually because I had a class a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of them were in my 66 club, and they asked me to show them how to play,
All
and I
right,
was like,
nice.
this is like a dog trainer's dream. Like, this is like not a normal conversation, but it was really, really fun. But you don't get a lot of that. And I tell you what, like, this is something, I'll go to the opposite side of the spectrum to the argument that a lot of these people are making. If I have a young spaniel, especially Cocker Spaniel, Springer, something like that, the number one thing I want to do with that dog is get them obsessed with fetch. Yeah, I'll use that word to be provocative. I want the dog to be like, I want them to be obsessed with fetch, because when I hit adolescence, then I have all the leverage in the world.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem with spaniels and a lot of those kind of dogs, like pointers as well, is when they hit adolescence, they discover hunting. And if you haven't put any effort into building alternative motivation, at that point, you're kind of fucked. Like you're going to have a really fucking hard time, because now your dog wants to chase deer, chase squirrels, and do all that kind of stuff, and you have nothing you can offer.
100%. I cannot agree more. And like I posted, by the time we gonna release that episode, that's gonna be probably a couple of days. But at the time of the recording yesterday, I posted like just honest story of my rescue dog that. I got her with serious behavioral problems, and that you know how terrified I was like about having this dog, and like I was honestly I was terrified with all my experience and having in my home like so many dogs and so on. I was like, I cannot imagine living with that dog, right? Horse dose of medication. I have to check how much it was, but I was like honestly surprised this dog is fucking functioning and can walk on this dose, right? And then it was still high risk activity to take this dog out of the walk, because like all she wanted to do is or run away or chase things or just be, I don't know, in different fucking world that I didn't understand at the time, right? And like right now, it's like totally different dog. We can walk off the lead and so on and so on. Like I said that before, probably I'm gonna say it again. Like the route from my garden door to my front door, which is actually like 3 meters next to, like, this is a pretty quiet road, right? This dog would fight to the death not to go like this route, right? For whatever reason she had, right? But that was like difficulty. So what about taking the dog, across the road and, for a walk and so on and so on. So, and honestly, like I barely did any obedience. I did focus work because I liked it. It didn't make any influence, but I just like the activity and I like to train it. But I did reaction for the name, like from obedience training, that was like some recall training and reaction for the name. And because with my accent, she didn't understand her name. So, and then the rest was like creating a play event for that dog. Right? Once I got that, let's be provocative. Like once I got that obsession and that drive and everything, and I'm obsessed with creating active dog toward the passive handler. But once I've got that obsession or the drive or focus motivation and the dog that is asking me, hey, play with me, even though I'm not having a toy in my hand or whatever, once I got that, then I could finally let this dog off the lead, right? And live a normal life. So it's, especially with dogs like that, with the high drive dogs, we shouldn't ever put the message out there, don't play with them.
It's a terrible idea. I mean, imagine if, let's say that someone that has a young spaniel or a young pointer or something like that sees that and then thinks, oh, I shouldn't play fetch with my dog. And actually, that might sound like some crazy hypothetical situation. I have literally had conversations with people with young dogs, with young dogs like that have been told by people, oh, you have a working dog, don't get them obsessed with ball because they're going to get really obsessive. It's like, well, that's really short-sighted because you're not thinking about the fact that when you hit adolescence, they're going to get... They need something. They need something. And way better to have something that you control. Because let's say you get the little puppy spaniel, working line, super driven, and then you get them obsessed with a ball, which I would do deliberately if I had a young working spaniel. Then you can control how much you're using it, under what circumstances. You don't have to make the ball the entire walk, but you can use it as the recall reward or whatever, you know? And then but you have massive motivation for something that you control and you get to do what you want with it.
Definitely. But something where because we have like those two sides, right? Like I think, I don't know, was it intentional by the authors of that thing or not, but that was the message that was put across, like don't play fight with the dog, right? But also there was some nonsense in that article, because I get it, like with some dogs, with some small percentage of the dogs, if this is the only thing what you are doing, you're gonna get in trouble, right? I've seen those dogs. However, the chances are quite low. But there was something about the kill bite. That just does not make any sense.
Yes.
Right? Like, and where I want to go with it, like the most amount of dogs with the problem actually were border collies. That, from my experience. Right? I'm not saying this is like fucking study or statistic you should be quoting, right? From my experience, the most of the dogs that I've seen having like really that obsession and Lux dog on the chase, and they couldn't otherwise cope with the world, right? Were border collies. And the statement that if the dog does not have kill bite, it's somehow not completed, or however they explain that, doesn't make any sense. So if you have like farm dog that is chasing sheep and never will kill one, will that dog have like massive psychological issue, right? Because there was no kill bite, right?
If you're breeding working border collies, you deliberately breed them so that they don't have any desire to do the kill bite, right? Because you don't want them killing sheep every time.
So in the sport, you don't want them to bite at all. With the farm dogs, as far as I'm concerned, like
they do the nipping.
Yeah, something is okay, but killing is not okay.
Of course,
right? So nobody, like no farmer wants the dog that kills.
You're not going to breed a dog that kills sheep.
What are you suggesting? That this dog will be unfulfilled because of lack of the kill bite, right? And just to mention, like in the article, there were mentioned agility dogs, where vast majority of them, they are border collies, right? But even with, like with Malinois, which this is my experience, right? It's not like, let me put it this way. Even argument, like the comparison that the prey drive and the play is exactly the same thing.
It's not.
It's very brave, and we could argue with that all day long, right? That we use that prey drive to explain things, but chasing and killing animal, it's something different than
the dog knows the sleeve isn't a animal. Yeah.
That's
like, you're not tricking the dog.
You're not, like, or the tennis ball. It's not the rabbit.
But
like,
well, hang on. This, like, so the other thing is the kill. Why are we talking about the kill bite? Like, that's the end of the sequence. The end of the sequence is dissection, is eating. So you're telling me if I play ball with the dog, what have I got to do? Let him eat the ball?
Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to do here? Like,
that's epic. Yeah,
like,
that's the thing.
So so if my dog isn't eating the thing on the other end, then it's not fulfillment?
Yeah. So that's a huge mistake. That's a huge nonsense.
And here's the problem with that, and this is the problem with the dog training industry oftentimes. What really is very annoying is this is the science. This is what the science says. Like this is the absolute truth. You can't argue with this. This is what the science says. And then you go deeper into it and it's like, science doesn't say that. That's absolute bullshit. Like, you're just absolutely bastardizing the science just so that people don't argue with you that don't know better. You're just making up shit. I saw this morning Simon Gabwa, who's a legit scientist, canine scientist over in Canada, had this big rant on Facebook about how pissed off he was that people keep like quoting his work and then just completely misrepresenting it.
Oh man.
And I didn't see what the source of the argument was, like why he got annoyed about this, but I got the impression that someone had posted like a study that he'd done to defend something, and then he had said, "Hey, no, that's not what I meant." And then that person argued with him about what his own study said. It's like, I think he knows. Like, he wrote the study.
I think he knows. I think, I would imagine he knows what he meant and what he wanted to prove or disprove, or what were his conclusions.
People have their own agenda, and they kind of cherry pick science, or even just completely misrepresent it to fit that agenda. And so the science isn't even perfect in the first place. Like, there's so much wrong with a lot of that stuff. Like, when I was speaking to Jens Frank, an incredible dog trainer and another legit scientist, he was, one of the things that he said is, the amount of science we have on dog training is like tiny, like so little. So for anyone to kind of make these broad assumptions based on science, it's like, that's such bullshit. Like, we have so little science on actually dog training.
It's really hard to navigate in that world with a lot of voices and information and misinformation, right? For normal person. That's why, it's worth to talk about that.
I think it's good for people to understand. I think everyone should spend a lot of time understanding the theory, because I think it also makes you less susceptible to bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, like when you understand the theory, when someone's bullshitting, you're like, what are you talking? Like, you're just talking shit, you know? Like, in fact, there are some maybe we'll talk off air, right? But like, there are some very famous people where, because I spent probably the first, I don't know, man, like maybe 12, 13 years. Like, I was really obsessed with theory, like really obsessed. And, but there are some very famous people where you hear them talk and it's like, you are talking utter like, this makes no sense. And maybe what you're doing works for another reason. But you don't understand why it works. Like, everything you say is just bullshit.
Okay.
But maybe what you're doing works, but for a totally different reason to the reason that you think it works, you know?
Okay. You're going to give the example, or?
No, man, I'm not gonna go down that hole. But like, so I think that learning the theory is very, very important. However, based on what I was just saying about, like, there is very little dog training science, I feel like the large majority of the time with dog training science is just playing catch up. It's catching up to what dog trainers have been doing for the longest time. And sometimes you see studies. And you're like, yeah, we've known that for years, right? You see that a lot. And sometimes you see stuff, people quoting studies, especially studies that haven't been done very well, or have had massive limitations, like sample size, or like they just haven't been done well. And you're like, and maybe this sounds like, I don't know, maybe this sounds anti-scientific, but you're just like, I just know that's bullshit. Like, I just know, like, you've trained 10 dogs for this study. I've trained 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 dogs.
Yeah.
I'm telling you and I can't prove it because I don't have a scientific study. But like I'm telling you, that's going to be refuted because I just know from training. Like
there is a lot of that.
This is just not the case.
Because this is what I call parrots and practitioners. People that they will just repeat the thing and never put that in the practice. And there are practitioners where, like whatever you preach, you did that before with, I don't know, number of dogs, and you are sure that's gonna work, or like this is how it's working, why it's working, or why that's not gonna work. But we're in the dog training. Most of the things were already done, and I'm I'm just going back to our conversation before we started recording that everything was pretty much done, and claiming it's yours is a little bit delusional.
Okay, yeah, I know exactly what you're getting at. This is funny because it's oh man, you're treading on some fucking thin ice, man. You do see people do that though. Like I saw it a lot because I was like, I've given up on that fucking positive versus balance shit. But as someone that for a long time paid attention to both sides of that, like it was quite funny to me to see things go from either side and be reinvented, right? Like as if it's a new thing. And it's like, oh, but that was because those two communities have become, and I think the boundaries are breaking down now, but for the longest time, it was so segmented that you could actually take one idea from one camp, go to the other camp, call it something else, and like pretend that you would just come up with something. And it's like, it's like only the people, and there weren't a lot of people that pay attention to both sides, realize people have been doing this for ages.
Yeah, same like, for example, with Nepal. It was done in dog training for ages. It just Bart Bellon, branded it and put it like some frame into it and then gave it cool name. So it's not like it was done. It was done. Other way, like with the box feeding. If you will... Like my friend, she posted like some video on one of the dog training groups with the box feeding, and people got offended because it's like they didn't like Nepopo and Bart Bellon, so and it was kind of connected box feeding to him. So the box feeding is bullshit, and why would you do it? Where so many positive trainers, they will do that. It's just they will
call it the bucket game.
Yeah,
it's
the
bucket
like
game.
Yeah,
it's like.
And
it's like
just named differently, and maybe there are some tweaks to how they
small differences,
right?
Yeah, small differences, but it's funny how it's funny to observe. Like when you have you see both, it's like funny to just notice that,
Yeah, and
talks to the tribalism,
talks to the tribalism. Well, yeah, this is what we like to do, especially nowadays. Like, if you look at the politics, dog training, or like any pretty much society, like we do that, and this is our nature. And
well, you do see this in politics. Like, I mean, I don't want to go into politics too much because it gets crazy. But like, for example, for the longest time, freedom of speech was like a left-wing thing, right?
Yeah.
And now you say someone talks about freedom of speech, and it's like, oh, they must be right-wing. So it's interesting how like it is you says the same thing, right?
I know, like like people are painting swastikas on Teslas right now.
Let's not go there, man. Let's not go there.
Let's not go there. Like I don't know about politics enough to have like any opinion about anything. So don't judge me. But anyway, just to conclude everything, like play with the dog. Maybe just don't take your dog for 20 minutes a day and chuck the ball and put the dog back in the crate. That's not going to be good, but there is like some nuance to it. Playing fetch included in the play event, it's a very valuable thing. Super, like it just adds to the play event or to the reward event. And the reward event can be made out of different things. It can be playing fetch, playing tag, playing food games, and so on, right? Or the cuddle or whatever. Another myth, but I'm not sure if we're gonna go there today, is about, oh no, that's gonna be separate episode. Like about, when your dog is scared, don't cuddle your dog.
Okay.
Or don't, because
that
it will reinforce fear.
There's some that will be an interesting conversation.
Yeah. And I had opinion before on that. However, right now I have like hands-on experience that, to be fair, open my eyes even wider. It's not like I changed my fucking view on the thing, but I got that experience with the dog where I was like, oh man, like it was super cool to experience that. And
oh man, you're making me want to talk about this now.
Yeah.
we need to do another episode.
No, we're gonna do another episode because like there is so much to uncover over here. So that's gonna be just shout out. Like we're gonna do it. We're gonna talk about that.
Okay, man.
And then
good.
Like at least I wanna share hands-on experience on this one.
You know what made me laugh?
Which I didn't have before, so I couldn't support this. But right now, I did it. I had it. Then fuck off.
You ran your own experiment.
Yeah, I ran my own experiment. Same like with playing fetch. I played fetch with both of my dogs. Like with one, with serious behavioral problems for 4 months. Every day, something was apparently what was wrong. And the improvement in the behavior was like massive. With my other dog, I played fetch, maybe not daily because it was 8 years. Like he's about 8.5 years. But let's say playing fetch was
frequent. You did it a lot.
Like a lot. Like maybe not on my holidays or something. There were days off, but pretty much we did that daily as our daily routine. And the dog is just like the best dog I ever had. Like chilled, relaxed, confident, can cope with the world, not obsessive, but also, guess what? Has 100% reliable recall from animal, from whatever, without, okay, I'm going to say it, without e-collars and shit like that.
Yeah. It's interesting because so much of recall is play. Like I've been teaching in our in-person business. I've been trying to do these off-lead fast tracks, like basically trying to get people's dogs off-lead like quickly. And it's interesting because it kind of focuses you. It's like, if I need to get this dog off-lead in 60 days, like we need to be efficient,
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm learning is to, like, right from the beginning now, like in the first time I ran it, I did the play later on in the course. And now I've changed that and I'm doing play on the first lesson.
All right.
Because I feel like play, if you can get the dog to play with you, that is going to really increase the ability or the likelihood of you being able to get your dog off lead,
And then we are talking about, drive building or building that play event, which is not, like done deal on the day one. It takes time. Same like changing feelings. It takes time. So the sooner you start, the better.
It's interesting though. Because I really want this course to be really good for the participants. I took a few like recall courses that other people were doing online, and I was surprised like how few of them even bring up play. Like they don't really talk about play at all. Like it's just kind of more like recall games and stuff like that.
Okay,
that's quite.
I think especially with the higher drive dogs, you can do so much with it. Like we did talk about that, and as you mentioned before, your dog may get interested in animals and chasing, etc. And if you have like nothing, then the recall is gonna be tricky. But if you will, and this is something what I did with my dogs, if I early on I will create that play event and create a passion for it, and I'm like super obsessed to make the dog obsessive over the game, right?
Yeah.
Then recall from dogs, recall from chase, and so on and so on. It's not that challenging.
One thing that really made me laugh when you posted that video the other day is you were talking about, like, as you were coming to the end of your video on Instagram about this whole fetch thing, you were like, fetch is fine. And it's like alcohol. Alcohol is fine too. and it just made me laugh because it was just the most fucking Polish analogy you could have got to. Start talking about how alcohol is not a problem.
Just don't do it. Like, it shouldn't be the only thing you're doing in your life. Right?
It just really made me laugh.
And for some people, they cannot have it at all, right? So for some dogs, maybe playing fetch. I don't know. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, like I love to use analogies for the human world because it's so much easier to relate. That video wasn't that thought through. Like I just did one take, and then
I liked it.
Done deal. Cool. I think we can go and train dogs.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.